Today I'm finally ready to showcase to you guys my top 16 deck profile for my V Premium Jewel Knight deck. What is up, you guys, and welcome back to the Prime Vanguard channel. Today I'm excited to showcase to you guys the deck that I got top 16 with at BCS Rosemont V Premium with Jewel Knights. Now, Jewel Knights, if you guys are not aware, is one of my favorite V Premium decks. I have featured this deck many times on my channel. I even took it to Springfest season with my team this year. Since that tournament, not much has changed for V. I mean, we've gotten a couple of the V promo cards, which has improved the consistency of a few decks, but I've had more time to work on my strategy and workshop my Jewel Knight deck. And I was able to make top 16 with it. I went to an 8-round tournament where we played 8 rounds of Swiss. I went X2 towards the end of it and made top 16. My 2 losses in the tournament were to Leopold and Fenrir, but I will say now that both of those fights were dogfights. But other than those 2 losses to 2 really powerful decks currently in the metagame of V Premium, I have to say that I'm actually very happy with my Jewel Knight deck and how it came out. This is the deck after the tournament because the cards I needed for the deck that I did not buy till later, finally came after the tournament in case I want to take it for the BCS Houston event or if I want to take it for BCS Georgia. I'm not entirely sure why I stand like that. I have one more surprise deck for V Premium that I'm thinking about taking to the event, but if I choose to go with the deck for Jewel Knights or the other deck I want to take for V Premium in Georgia, then you guys will know which choice I'll make by the end of it. With that being said, let's head over to camera 2 and finally get this deck profile started. Alright, you guys, to get this deck profile started off with, we are starting with 4 copies of the star of the show and my favorite Royal Paladin unit of all time. 4 copies of Broken Heart Jewel Knight Ashley Reverse. 5 attack, 53,000 power, 2 critical, as well as your opponent cannot use Sentinels. Retire 2 front row units, potentially 3, is insane. Ashley Reverse is the pinnacle of what you want a Vanguard to be. This card does so much for her own strategy, it's ridiculous. Like, it's disgusting. Yeah, Ashley is just insane. The 5 attacks, the retire, it all helps in key matchups as well, especially against Thavis. Like, Thavis is really popular right now, and being able to just snipe those front row rear guards, knock out those pursuit assaults, really helpful. Leopold, same thing. Being able to take out the barcode, being able to take out the Tester Fox. Like, despite them being able to draw an insane amount, they do still have to commit a lot of cards from their hand in order to get the rear guard formation the way they want to set up for it, as well as the simple fact that we have other Jewel Knights in the deck that possess retire abilities or control effects to knock out key pieces that they might keep in the back row. Like, for example, you can use certain cards to knock out Leopold in the back row. Same thing with Luard, just does every single thing you need it to do in terms of those matchups that have these really high hands as well as really solid defensive powers and formation abilities. For my next grade 3, I am playing 2 copies of Pure Heart Jewel Knight Ashley. This grade 3 is only here for 2 reasons. This is the grade 3 you go into if you have no damage or you have no access to heal guardians to go into Ashley Reverse. This card is also a really good setup. It gives you 5 attacks. Not a bad grade 3 whatsoever. It's actually really strong still in my opinion. I know a lot of people don't like it. I don't prefer to go into this at all. I don't like the ride into this to go into Ashley Reverse setup. I think that's completely unnecessary. You want to go directly into Ashley Reverse to increase your chances of winning your games as soon as possible. She is, however, one of your attack extenders, like being her on the rear guard. If you have the additional soul to use the effect Soul Blast 2, getting the attacker out, is actually really solid as well, and it gives you 6 attacks in this deck, especially with your main Vanguard being the critical attack with the Sentinel trick that they really have to worry about. For my last grade 3, I'm playing 1 copy of Leading Jewel Knight Salome. Now, I play Salome, and despite people like taking her out to play more of this or just reduce the grade 3 count, I actually think that depending on where you are game-wise as well as turn-wise, if you don't have access to Ashley Reverse and you go second and this is your first grade 3 and you already have damage, this is way better to go into than this. This gives you more card advantage, a restanding Vanguard. It actually benefits you to be on Force 2 as well as with you be on Ashley Reverse. You're not locked in going to Force 1 in other circumstances, and it just gives you the really good setup to make sure that you're able to play your deck as optimally as possible. For my next grade 2, I'm playing 4 copies of Dogmatized Jewel Knight Sybil. It's the ideal grade 2 ride target to get more bodies on the board, filter out your hand, and set up for your Ashley Reverse plays, or plays for either one of these if you have to go into them. For my next grade 2, I am now playing 4 copies of Branding Jewel Knight Miranda. Now, in BCS, I was actually playing 3 copies of Ashley and 3 copies of Miranda, only because I could not find my 4th copy. However, that is incorrect. You need to have 4 copies of this, and the main reason being is the fact that besides another card in the deck, the other 2 actually, this is one of the only cards that actually soul charge during the main phase for your effect. Now, all of Ashley Reverse's lock effect is an act, so it happens actually during the main phase, which means that you need to have the 6 soul set up already to use lock 3 and then get her guard restrict effect. So being able to use your Jewel Knight skills and just call this card over other Jewel Knights, call it over herself to get the additional soul charge needed, regardless of the counter charges available to you or not, is very important. It is also the main powerhouse piece of this deck. This card is going to match the power of your Vanguard after you give all the trigger effects as well to this unit and whatever unit you have boosting to make it a lot stronger. So swinging like 58,000 on the rear if it's on a force 2, or just swinging 58,000 in general is a really high number against your opponent that demands a lot of shield. It demands PG or multiple triggers to block the attack after they've got done blocking Ashley Reverse. Next up, we have 4 copies of Explode Jewel Knight Lael. This card lives up to its name. This is your main combo piece in making sure that all of your rear guards are swinging for magic numbers against your opponents, especially the ones that don't have other power-up effects. It also gives you the battle phase soul charge for setup for skills such as Ashley. It gives you additional 10,000 power over anything that's called over, like if you use it with Ashley or Ashley Reverse, call over another one to get more. It gives you also 2 cards back into the deck, so if you're ever in a situation where you're like running low on deck, this card actually puts 1 card back into the deck after the soul charging and everything, and it just hits for really good numbers. You know, if you call over it, you're gonna swing for like 25,000, which is over 23,000, which is over a 10k block. This card is just purely solid in making sure that our offense is as strong as it possibly can be. And now for grade 1s, I play 4 copies of Charging Jewel Knight Morvidius. This is the main call over card. You definitely want to ride this card as your first ride target, and I will explain why. The reason being is because you want to save the other grade 1s that you have actually for the rear guard. Their rear guard abilities, besides the getting the additional card to your hand, sometimes does come up, and when we get to those cards we'll discuss it later. But the counterblast effect of this very rarely ever comes up. You want to expel your CB on Ashley Reverse and then Miranda to make sure you're hitting hard, and then you also want to expel you also want to keep your damage low sometimes because just of how fast and crazy these other decks are. So having Morvidius being a card that's a really good ride target gives you a free +1, and sometimes giving additional power to your Vanguard. I think the max we ever got on this card was like 10,000 because I had the CB to do it because I was just rushed really hard back and I wanted to rush him hard back too. So yeah, it's another good way of getting main phase soul charge, but it's just more expensive in this deck. For my next grade 1, I play 4 copies of Fruiting Jewel Knight Eunice. Now Eunice actually becomes a very big deal in certain matchups because this, especially against Leopold, is how you knock out the Leopolds in the back row and destroy their entire board. Ashley will knock out 3 of their front row units when you lock 3, and then this card, when you call over it with a new effect, when you're setting up your Ashley play, will get rid of the Leopold. This card will also get rid of the back row units that they have for Luard. It knocks out that grade 1 unit that gives all of your other grade 1 units the ability to intercept. This card will take that card out and knock out their front row. This retire effect of this actually comes up a lot now because of just how, you know, formation based a lot of these other decks are. Like, they need their pursuit assaults, they need their grade 1 units to let them intercept, they need Leopold in the back row. So therefore the back row does come up. The effect to get this back into hand actually does come up as well. It's one of your really good early game rush pieces if you are discarding early or blocking early with normal units, which I personally like to do, and it helps you set up for that. So this way in the early game you can start making magic numbers against your opponent and hit them as hard as you possibly can prior to going into Ashley Reverse. And for the MVP, the most important and probably like the best supporting Jewel Knight in the deck, if not, was 4 copies of this. Oh my god, y'all. This card has a really simple effect of letting you soul charge during the main phase to give 5,000 power to your Vanguard, as well as letting you, when called over, look at the top 2 and add a Jewel Knight to your hand. This card makes your cycling so insane. You can just keep calling over this and filtering out more Jewel Knights and using your effects like Sybil and Maeli to, oh my goodness. I got really excited there. I just love this deck, guys. But Alwyn, you know, she came up so much during the tournament, giving +15, giving +20,000 to your Vanguard prior to Ashley Reverse's ability. It does come up a lot. It helps you get past those, like, you know, 5 trigger defenses. It stops them from generating, you know, insane amounts of advantage because they're dumping so much to stop Ashley Reverse. Like, the power bonus from Alwyn, as well as the fact that you can cycle this card out, is just really insane, guys. And then finally, I'm playing 2 copies of Laurel Knight Sisyphus. Now, I know a lot of people have opted out for the Ride Cycler for V Premium. The one lets you discard it, check top 5 for any of these, but I actually prefer this. Not only does it let you rush in the early game, it's a really solid booster towards like grade 1, grade 2 turns. This card lets you filter out for Ashley Reverse because if you don't ride an Ashley Reverse, guys, you're already in lethal. You are already losing, in my opinion, and if you can't get her on the turn afterwards to set up for it on your Force 2 play, you are basically going to die. This deck is very fragile by not getting, after it doesn't get onto Ash Reverse, just because of how fast everything else is in V Premium. So making sure that I get the ideal grade 3 that I need to win my games is extremely important to me. And then for trigger, the trigger lineup hasn't changed. I'm still playing 8 critical. I'm playing 4 draw triggers, as well as I'm doing a 2-2 split between the Heal Guardian and the regular heal triggers. And then for my starter, 1 copy of Dreaming Jewel Knight Tiffany. This is my take on Ashy Reverse right now. Very solid decks. You should still be scared of it. Just you know, watch out for it when you go to BCS or whatever sort of main V Premium event you're going to play about. I love this deck with all my heart. Yeah, just crazy fun. With that being said, card fighters, I'll catch you later. Thank you so much for staying tuned throughout the entirety of this video. Peace.